Hi, and welcome to another edition of Bauer Business Bites. My name is David Tighe. I'm the Managing Director of Bauer Media here in Northern Ireland. And each week we delve into an area of business and industry that we can try and gauge some insight and opinion from. This week, my guest, I'm delighted to say, is the star of stage, screen, musicals, director, producer. It's Peter Corry from Peter Corry Productions. Peter, we're delighted to have you with us this week.
Thank you, David. Nice to be here.
Well, it's great to see you. And obviously, we are talking to you this week about the theatre and the arts in general. But before we get into that, just for people who may not have heard of you, and I can't believe there wouldn't be anyone that hasn't heard of Peter Corry in Northern Ireland, but just tell us a little bit about Peter Corry Productions.
Well, Peter Corry Productions is literally our production company, which provides entertainment for events, for theatre, for anything that maybe a corporate market might want, as far as putting on something like light entertainment or background atmosphere, and right through to fully staged shows with casts of 30 and 40 and 50 people. So really it's grown over certainly last year. We expanded quite considerably, and this year was down to be a fantastic year for us, which is, like a lot of other people, has just completely disappeared before our eyes,
Yeah. And I suppose I'd like to get into that. So, the theatre, it has really, really been hit. I don't need to tell you that. What are some of the stories that you're hearing from your colleagues in the theatre over the last few months about the situation that they're facing into?
I think what we're finding from our point of view is also what has been the atmosphere within the wider community. It's confusion. It's the fact that we look at what seems to be slightly unfair, not slightly, it's unfair how we are being treated compared to other industries. I think from a common sense approach, certainly myself and my colleagues find it difficult to see how such things can happen, as you can sit on an aeroplane, or you can go and sit in a restaurant, or you can sit in a pub now and have a drink, but you can't go to the theatre in a way that makes sense financially for the theatre to run. And I think we just find that we're being left behind. And it's disappointing to see the lack of thought that seems to have gone into, well, maybe the thought's gone there, but nothing's been activated to really help us. At the moment, I know there's £33 million which has come across from London to the executive, which hopefully will come in our direction, because that's what it was originally intended for. But that seems to be taking longer than we all thought. And I think a lot of us are also disappointed that maybe we feel that some people don't understand our industry. And it is an industry, and it has people who work hard. And we don't want to have to ask for this support. We'd rather be out working. But at the moment, we find ourselves that we're not allowed to really work, So we need support and understanding as much as anything else.
Yeah, well, I think you make some really valid points there, and my understanding of the industry, that many of the people working in it are essentially self-employed, and that gives another twist to the situation, I'm sure.
Yes, I mean, this furlough that's being talked about a lot applies to a lot of people, obviously, but within our industry, many people are self-employed, and that at the moment we don't know what's happening. We don't know whether at the moment, maybe that will change, but at the moment there's nothing going forward for us. And yet at the same time, we're not in a position where we're allowed to go back and work in a theatre in a way that makes sense. And when I say it makes sense, maybe they're allowing a certain number of people to go and sit in the theatre, like with distancing, but that financially cannot work in a theatre. If you go to a cinema, I hope I've got my figures correct here, but I think you need something like 20% capacity to break even. For a theatre to production to break even in most theatres, you're talking around about 75–80% for that production to make financial sense. In other words, for everyone who's involved in it to be paid. But I don't just want to limit this to theatre also, by the way, David. Events are in a similar position. I mean, the other side of Peter Corry Productions is, as I say, working at events. And a lot of people are self-employed there, right from the riggers to the lights to the sound, to those that provide the backdrop for these things. And they're in a similar position. And we sort of feel the lack of consistency, and that's what we're finding disappointing and difficult to understand.
Yeah, yeah. I think you make the points very well. So if you had that direct hotline to people who could make a difference to the industry, whether it be at theatre or events, what would you be saying?
Well, I think I'd say, please, this 33 million needs to come in the direction it was originally intended for. I'm not saying other places within Northern Ireland don't need money. They do, but it shouldn't come from that. That should go to where it was intended for. Secondly, let's work out how we can open up. Let's work out in a sensible way. Because people who go to the theatre or go to a lot of these things, they're not going to go mad after 10 o'clock at night and suddenly forget about social distancing in whatever way, shape, or form, or wearing their mask, or getting too close when they're speaking to other people. Theatre people are slightly better behaved than that. And I think common sense needs to be applied. And of course, I'm not saying we need to be careful with this pandemic that's going around, but this whole industry needs support. The film industry gets support now, as in things are underwritten. And as a producer, I know that it's very difficult for a producer to put something on now in the theatre or in the entertainment if you take it further than that. Because if you have to cancel it, we had something that needed to be cancelled a few months ago, you financially lose out. It's not underwritten in the same way that TV and film is. And that would be another thing that would help substantially.
Okay. You know, if nothing else, the theatre and the events industry are very, very well full of creative people. So there must have been some creative stories and tales that you've heard in recent months.
We're all trying to reinvent the wheel. Not just Peter Corry Productions, but a lot of people in my industry, and that'll happen. And hopefully that'll happen for Christmas. Also, we're looking at a couple of ideas, but we've got to feel that our audience feels comfortable doing that and has the confidence in what we're doing to come out and to enjoy live performance. But one of my other hats is as the artistic director of the Belfast School of Performing Arts, and we have 8 schools throughout Northern Ireland. 7 of them we have now been able to reopen, which in itself has been a big task. But thankfully, and touch wood, that's happening, and our young people are able to come back on Saturdays and perform and meet friends and learn. And performing schools are good, not just for those young people who want to go forward in this professionally, but I think it's so important for a young person in gaining confidence and self-belief that they take forward in life in many different ways. One of the other things that the Belfast School of Performing Arts, BSPA as it's known, is doing, we've introduced a thing called the Sunday sessions, which are going to happen for our 14-year-olds up. And it doesn't have to just be people in BSPA. This can be young people outside BSPA who are interested also in performing arts. We're putting on master classes where we're bringing over the resident director of Les Miserables in London, a member of the cast of Hamilton, which is like the biggest musical in the world at the moment, an actor who's been in The Dark Knight Rises. We have a guy from Broadway, and they're coming over to do master classes on Sundays throughout October and November with young people who are interested in that. And also BSPA, we're running a course called The Film, which will be young people who are interested either in being in front of the camera or behind the camera, working on a short film, right from devising it to writing the script to acting in it. That's taking place throughout October and November and into December. So we're trying to help still lay the foundations for young people who are interested in going forward in this as a career. So that's something which is interesting, and fingers crossed we'll be able to continue. And as I say, that's from 14 up to 25 years of age.
Well, that's fantastic, and I'm sure people can pick up more info if they send you an email, and the email will follow at the end of this. And as someone who started in amateur theatre, I can fully obviously I didn't make the cut, Peter, like you, but I did play Danny Zuko in Greece once when I was 17, right. And you can see the resemblance, or not. But I have to say, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic experience to be part of the theatre.
But David, you're a perfect example. You're a perfect example then of what young people performing, where it can lead. It doesn't have to lead in necessarily one direction. It gives you self-belief in yourself. And that's so important, you know.
Fantastic. Well, Peter, we're here to support you and the theatre and the events industry. And thank you for being our guest this week.
Thank you.